Hello, and welcome to Meet the Music. I'm your host, Thomas Corley. This episode features one of the few genres in our new series, The Many Sounds of the Caribbean, here in our third season. This episode's genre is ska. Our guest this episode is our first guest who has presented on a TED Talk. You have to check it out. I was very excited to watch it, and I watched it 3 times. Our guest this episode is Professor Heather Augustyn. Heather Augustyn does a considerable amount of research in the history of ska music in Jamaica, the UK, the US, and all over the world. Her publications include books, scholarly journals, magazines, and online publications. Her collection of ska oral history and artifacts is currently on display at the Archive of African American Music. Her books are Ska and Oral History, Ska, the Rhythm of Liberation, and the Alpha Boys School. They're all available on Amazon. Check them out. Professor Augustyn, welcome to Meet the Music.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Thanks. So, I always try to run down the list of things that my guests have, in their bio. YouTuber, coach, author, writer. You've got a ton of things. So how did you end up on a TED Talk?
Well, that was kind of a life dream, really. I watch a lot of TED Talks, and they were doing an event here in Northwest Indiana where I live, and I think it was the second year that they had hosted it, and they asked me if I would present. And the year that they were doing it, there was a theme, and the theme was it was something about being something like a rebel or something like that. And so I tried to tailor what I was saying to that. Oh, I know what it was. It was creating a revolution. And so I tried to tailor my talk to that. And I thought, wow, well, I know who really created a revolution, and that was the women in Jamaican music. And so I really tried to highlight them, talk about them, because I think that not a lot of people know their story, and they've been relegated to the background of music, just like in any other genre, really. But I thought they were really revolutionary and rebels in a sense, because they took their passion and persevered despite really some, challenges that would have, killed anyone weaker. So I thought, yeah, this is the perfect topic. So I presented and tried to tailor it to, kind of how TED Talks are. You want to have some sort of a takeaway. It's not just like here's a lesson or in history. It's, there's something that you can kind of take away and do. And so I talked about capturing oral histories, talking to people in our own lives, recording them so that we preserve history, which is really kind of the crux of my career.
I thought that was so cool. That's why I said I watched it a couple of times. I was like,
thank you.
I love this. It's one of the things that, like you said, you get from a TED Talk. You to take away, and I've watched a lot myself, and yours are ranking up there in the top of my enjoyment.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of all the music genres out there, you could have been a rockabilly person, you could have been a jazz person, you could have been a classical music person, but how did you, from the Midwest, get into ska as a genre of music? How did it get in your headspace?
Yeah, it's a common question people ask me, because it doesn't seem like my path would have crossed with Jamaican music at some point. But, I think I was born in the early 70s, and I think that, was exposed to Bob Marley in the later 70s, just like a lot of people were. and certainly fell in love with his music. I remember listening to it in my parents' van on the 8-track player, listening to Exodus thumping down the street. So that was, that was, you can't help but be infected by that music and that heartbeat. But then I never put together that ska and reggae were connected. When I heard ska, it was during my high school years. I heard two tone, which was the music that was coming out of the UK at that time, largely out of Coventry, and I loved it then. I did have, a few cassette tapes of that music and loved it. Still never put together that these things were related. So in the mid 90s, I was living in Chicago, and American ska was very popular during that time. And I was I loved it. I just fell in love with it. I went to a Toasters concert in I believe about 1994. And I thought, why is everybody dancing? Because that nobody had been dancing at concerts before that. That was the era of arena rock, so and grunge. It was a yeah. So I like, don't get me wrong, I can take a little bit of grunge, but after a while, you just need something to lift you up. Well, that was ska for me, and everybody was dancing. It was very upbeat, very positive, very energetic. I fell in love with it. And as a graduate student, I think I was in the mindset that I had to research everything. So I thought, what is this music? Where did it come from? There weren't any books in the library on it. The internet was really in its infancy, so there wasn't anything outside of, maybe an AOL chat room or something, but nothing substantive. So I thought, well, this is what I'm going to do. My work is cut out for me. And so I started interviewing people in about 1995. And if I saw that a band was coming on tour through Chicago and I was going to see them, I would ask if I could interview them. And so I was very fortunate to interview a number of American artists, but also Jamaican artists, because ska experienced a revival of all versions, the Jamaican era, the British era. It really was popular in the mid 90s. So I was fortunate to be able to talk to some of the Jamaican legends that have been that are no longer with us, and through them I learned the history. So that's kind of how I fell in love with the music first, and then I fell in love with the culture and the history, and as a result, it's really deepened my appreciation for the music.
Oh, okay. But your parents are the ones that introduced you to it then, though, right?
Not really. I mean, my dad did influence me to Bob Marley. And he's a very big reggae fan, and he still, he'll say, "Oh, listen to some Lucky Dubé. You need to listen to," So we'll share some music with each other. But he's really more into roots reggae, Steel Pulse, that sort of thing, which I love. Don't get me wrong. But ska, my brother was the one that took me to my first ska concert, and so yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting. I think the music that we fall in love with, it kind of happens that way, where you get introduced by, a friend or something. I hear that from people. They'll say, "Oh, my older brother played the Specials album for me," and so yeah, it kind of happened that way for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not familiar with Chicago, but is there a large Jamaican community there?
Not large, but it's decent. I mean, you can still go get a patty somewhere, which is nice, and some jerk chicken, but it's not large. But if you go to an oldies show, which Chuck Wren was putting on a few years back, he's from the Jump Up Records. If you go to see, Stranger Cole, you'll see a good amount of Jamaicans in the audience, which is really nice, because it's just such a melting pot of fans, which is really, I think, special about ska. It's a very tight knit community of some very diverse people, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I like that. I
Hmm.
like that. So, can you give us the birth, a little history?
Sure, I would love to. So, Jamaica, very small island, and from this island, we have so many distinct genres that have been really, I don't created, invented, and prior to ska, there was the indigenous music on the island was mento, and mento was it's kind of a blend of, it's similar to calypso, but calypso is Trinidadian. But mento is similar, where there's a rumba box, somebody sitting on the rumba box and plinking the metal tines, and then a banjo, a flute, some maracas, a singer with a guitar, very similar. And it was an African, of the diaspora, and it was a storytelling music, as well as kind of a little bit gossipy, maybe sometimes lots of innuendo. And so that music was one of the things that influenced ska. So put that aside for a moment. Mento. The next kind of music that helped to shape ska was American rhythm and blues, because in the 1950s, American rhythm and blues, you could pick it up in Jamaica on a transistor radio, a broadcast from Miami or even Nashville, New Orleans. They could pick these radio stations up, and very, very popular American rhythm and blues. So Roscoe Gordon, No More Doggin', these kinds of songs would be played in the yard, like an outdoor, yard in a neighborhood, and people would just dance to it. And that was in the 50s, mid 50s, about. Okay, so American rhythm and blues, put that aside. The third element of ska is jazz music, because in the 1940s and 1950s, jazz music was popular in Jamaica in the clubs because there were American tourists. Jazz was popular in America. So these are the big bands, with the band shells that advertise the name of the band, and they would be things like the Eric Dean's Orchestra, or even the name of the club, the Colony Club or the Silver Slipper. And they'd be, 12, 15, 18-piece bands playing the jazz standards that were popular. Jamaica was a colony of Great Britain until 1962. So they're playing a lot of the music that is popular in England, the jazz standards, as well as in America, for American and British tourists, as well as the upper classes of Jamaica, which are essentially whites. So the African musicians, the Jamaican musicians that were black, would be playing to all white crowds, and they would not be permitted in the front doors of these clubs. So still very racist during these years. So we have these three elements: mento, American rhythm and blues, and jazz. And so when the musicians who were trained to play jazz would be done with their evening of work in the clubs, they were playing what they wanted to play with each other. And so they were trying to play American rhythm and blues sometimes, and some of the mento storytelling kind of element was peeking in there, along with some of that kind of a syncopated flavor a little bit. These three forms of music combine outside of the clubs, to form ska. If you listen to the very early forms of ska in about 1958, 59, you'll hear shuffle blues. And that's really what it sounds like, is shuffle blues or boogie woogie. And it sounds like that. But then in about 1959, 1960, that beat is a little bit less slippery, and it starts to become very distinct on the 2 and the 4 beat. Very, very hard instead of slippery. And that is ska. It's really that beat. It's the horns, and the tempo can vary, but it really is it is a very fast tempo. And so ska really lasts in Jamaica very popular from about 1959. The very earliest song was called Easy Snappin'. What's credited with the first song? It's still a little boogie woogie if you hear it, but it's called Easy Snappin' by Clue J and the Blues. I think it's the Blues Blasters, but it's really Theo Beckford, and he's the pianist who's playing that offbeat on the piano, so you can hear that pretty distinct. And then ska lasts until about 1964. And there are a number of reasons why it fades out at that point. I don't know if you want me to go into that, but it lasts until about 1964. That doesn't mean it goes away. It doesn't mean it goes anywhere. But in Jamaica specifically, there are other distinct genres that that become more popular. I think it just, it lasted a while and that was it. It becomes popular in other countries. Many of the West Indian musicians had emigrated to the UK post World War II during the Restoration era, and they bring with them not only their musical talent but their records. And so that's why it becomes popular in the UK. They're playing house parties, shebeens. They're playing in clubs. They go to the UK to get work. So a number of very popular jazz era musicians go to the UK to find better work. There's Joe Harriott, Harold McNair, Blue Bogey, Bertie King, Rico Rodriguez on trombone. He goes. There's a number of them that go. And when they do, they influence the music there. So jazz in the 1940s, it was jazz, but in the 60s, definitely ska came to the UK, and that's where it merged into different forms there. It merged with punk and became two-tone.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah,
that's the first leg of the journey.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, then you have a long period where it's kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say dormant or idle or something like that. And then you mentioned it came popular here in the 90s in the U.S. Again, or a different fusion of it, I guess you could say.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, in Jamaica, it was Rocksteady took over in about 64 to about 66, somewhere in that era. And so Rocksteady is a slower tempo, fewer horns, more vocals. And it's just a slower beat. You rock steady to it. And then, reggae really takes over in about 68. And that's that. I mean, reggae was massive. But in the UK, yeah, I mean, it was still popular. I mean, ska was popular really all over the world, in the 60s, because My Boy Lollipop by Millie Small really introduced people to the ska sound, even though it's a pop version of ska. That song was huge globally. And so that really opened up a lot of people's eyes to ska. And so we see these little enclaves of ska popularity popping up in, Poland and in, Colombia. And you hear about you only discover this later and you realize, oh, I mean, it never really went anywhere. It just kind of was like, these sparks flew and started little fires everywhere. And
Right.
it's not linear. It's not linear like here's the beginning and now here's the end. It's just
Right.
it's simmering everywhere.
It's funny as you
Yeah.
say that because my listeners will probably get tired of me mentioning this website, which I seem to do every episode, but it comes down to it. Spotify has something out there called everynoise.com. And if you
Okay.
go out there, you'll see 5,112 different genres and subgenres of music. And out there,
Whoa.
ska. I meant to get a select the list and see how many times it pops up. But I
Yeah.
mean, I've listened to Russian, I've
Yeah.
listened to Latin, I've
Yeah.
listened to Japan. So
Yeah.
ska, like
Yes.
you said, is not linear. Yeah,
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 that's right. Yeah, and it's fascinating because we don't know about it and we haven't heard about it, but now that we have technology, we can, learn that there was this band in Poland in 1965 and there was just and that's the power of Jamaican music is it really I think fed creativity for others everywhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, what was the spark to write? Was it
I
the
studied
graduate
to
program?
Yeah, I studied to be a writer. I went to grad school to get my master's degree in writing. And so this was, it started off as a project. I thought, well, this will be my passion project. And then it just kind of turned into a lifelong chase. And I say chase because to me it's just as much about writing as it is about preserving the history before it's gone. And that's why I do an oral history because we have a lot of the artifacts from this era. We have the records. We know the label. We know the labels. We know the matrix numbers and all that, and that's fine. I'm not really interested in that as much as I am the narratives and the stories of the people that were involved. And those people are not going to be with us forever. But if we can capture the stories, then that will help us to appreciate the music. So I'm always on the chase to make sure that I track people down and talk to them. Or if they're not around, at least their family members. But I'm a
I mean, you're
writer.
still on a
That's what I
mission to
do.
do that right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact,
Oh,
I was just emailing somebody this morning about setting up an interview. So, yeah, definitely. So, when you mentioned that I have a collection at the Archives of African American Music and Culture, that's at Indiana University in Bloomington, that's a permanent collection. And that's all of my interviews. And there are, I think, I don't know, about 200 of them maybe, and those are being digitized and preserved for future researchers to use. A lot of those people have passed away. Laurel Aiken, Prince Buster, Rico Rodriguez, Lloyd Knibb, Lloyd Brevet, Roland Alfonso. I mean, the list goes on and on. People that are no longer with us. Millie Small herself at 3 times. Those interviews are there. They're speaking, and those will be available for everybody. That's why I do what I do is to preserve the history and the culture. So yeah, that's a really important part of my mission. But I'm a writer too, so I teach writing at Purdue Northwest, and I was a journalist for 12 years for a newspaper. So I enjoy writing, but that's just one way that I choose to share this history that I love so much. Because you can listen to it and appreciate it. Absolutely, that's the best way to do it. But I think if you have a
right,
little
right.
bit of story behind it, it just makes it a little sweeter.
Yeah. Well, as a side question, you write pretty much factually. Do you have a novel in you?
I did write a short story, I guess you could call it, but it's called Johnny Too Bad, and it's based on history. I mean, it's really a historical fiction, but it largely revolves around Edward Sayaga and in about 1962. But yeah, it's fun. But no, I prefer to stick with nonfiction. I don't know if I'm very good at fiction. I don't think I'm very good at it. But
So, I mean, so what do you see as the evolution of ska as a genre?
yeah, I mean, it really kind of just depends on who's the conduit, who's it coming through at the time. And it's definitely, there's a lot going on right now. And it's, every different flavor of ska you could want is out there. There are plenty of people that are playing it the traditional way. That's my favorite. But Western Standard Time Ska Orchestra is one of my absolute favorites. They're about an 18-piece orchestra out of LA. And, I think if you have baritone sax in your lineup, you are sounding pretty great because you get that low honk and it's a really full sound. Eastern Standard Time, they're a fantastic band out of, I believe, DC. Again, more traditional, a little bit more reggae, a little bit slower. Um, and there's plenty of ska punk in America, and that's
Yeah,
kind of
I did
some
see
of the
that, the
the
punk
goofy stuff.
influence. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not my favorite. I think that had its time, because it was post grunge, and we needed something a little silly. But I think we can put the Hawaiian shirts away and call it a day at this point for that, in my opinion. But I like the jazz based stuff. That's just I like a fuller, richer sound. So I think if my motto is anything is better with horns. So it's got to have a good
Okay.
horn section for me. Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of modern ska out there. Meaning the Interrupters are doing some pop ska, which is pretty decent, and it's fun and it's catchy, and it's got and that's the thing with ska is it's kind of catchy. But and then some of the Jamaican oldies are still doing their thing too. I mean, Stranger Cole's still out there, Derek Morgan, and I think he just turned 82 or something. He's still doing it. So, but once we get past this, COVID era, I think we'll see a lot more. Mighty Mighty Boss Tones just released an album, I think this week, mid May. I think they just released another album. So that Boston, you know, they're a very Boston flavor, like edgy, kind of a gravelly, hornsy, lively. It's still there, and I think we need it now more than ever. So lots of good creativity is still happening. Yeah.
So, were you able to do a list for us?
Yeah, so okay, so it's not going to be like a formal list. I'm going to throw some suggestions out there for you. So I think if you need if you need kind of an entry point into Jamaican ska and you'd like to know where to start
Yeah.
and you'd like to know where to stop, right? Because like, to me these guys are the be all end all, but the Scatolites are the consummate ska, Jamaican ska band. So if you pick anything from the Scatolites, I personally, I wrote a book on Don Drummond. I could talk all day about that, but he is uh, a really crucial element of this band because the trombone solos. And those trombone solos are outstanding. The band is really led by Tommy McCook, tenor saxophonist, and every single one of those members could have been a leader, and they were, and that was probably what kind of contributed to their demise. But the Scatolites, favorites, Eastern Standard Time, classic song. Guns of Navarone, classic song that was taken from popular spaghetti Western film of the time. And I like some of the songs that they play that have a little bit more of what's been known as the Eastern sound. So I like Cleopatra. I like Latin Goes Ska. But you can't go wrong with Scatolites songs. So there are plenty of good compilations out there. Just pick one, and you'll be set. Get ready to dance. I think if you want something these are instrumentals, by the way. So if you want something that has some vocals in it, maybe a little bit of a catchier kind of more traditional formulaic, a little bit more formulaic, like what we would expect for rock and roll. The Rock Steady is also very good. I would recommend Derek Morgan is always a good bet. Stranger Cole is one of my favorites. Now, Stranger Cole sang with a woman named Patsy Todd. Her real name was Millicent Todd, Patsy. But so if you pick up anything by Stranger and Patsy, one of my favorites is a song called Down by the Train Line. Beautiful, beautiful harmonies on there. And they're just this, you can feel the sweetness of that duo. But for the UK era, if you want to hear what that sounds like, compare it. The Specials, that's the seminal band of that era. I personally, this song is different than most of their other ska songs, but my personal favorite is a song called Ghost Town. But some of their more lively songs, A Message to You, Rudy, is the most popular one probably, and it's a good one, so you want to probably find that one. Don't forget, a lot of these bands in the UK during this era are covering or paying respect to the Jamaican songs. So when you hear a song like The Prince by Madness, they're paying respect to Prince Buster and things like that. So you may hear some covers. A Message to You, Rudy is a cover of a Dandy Livingstone song. It's their version of it, so it's a good one. But for the American era in the 90s, a personal favorite is the Toasters. I love East Side Beat. That's a great tune. Matt Davis, Special Agent. It's interesting in this time in the mid-90s, we get into a lot of spy themed ska. I wrote a paper on that. But see, the Rude Boy was the gangster kind of bad men that was chronicled or characterized or even kind of taken on as a little bit of a mascot by the UK version of ska. It was a real thing in Jamaica, a real criminal. But that badness, that coolness, the wearing sunglasses and the way they dressed sharp, that was the Rude Boy character. Well, in America in the 90s, that morphs into the spy because of, it was the Cold War era had just ended. So Matt Davis, Special Agent, is a spy-themed ska song that's pretty good, one of my favorites. But the Toasters are good. And, I think that now, like I already mentioned a couple, but I would say Western Standard Time Ska Orchestra is one of my favorites. If you want to hear something completely different that's really good from the late 80s, mid 80s, I would say Fishbone. Love some Fishbone. They're funky ska. So Party at Ground Zero is a great one. Okay, this list is turning into one of my novels. This is my novel. So I'm sorry, I'm giving you a really big list.
This is exactly what it is. This show is all about.
Okay.
I mean, for somebody to be on the show and then share their passion about the songs that they have. Because
good.
The thing is that I'm trying to, a one man show, try to break the mold of people being monomusical.
Yeah.
Because,
good. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I had talked to a gentleman in the Netherlands. We were talking jazz, and he told me a funny story about his friends when he was growing up, and he
Mhm.
ran into them later on as adult, and they were still Dire Straits fans.
Oh
He couldn't understand.
no.
He couldn't understand. With all this music out here, they were still stuck there.
Oh no. Oh
So
gosh. Yeah. Okay. Now I
yeah,
get
yeah,
it. Now I get it.
yeah. So
Yeah.
no, my mission is to break the mold of people being
Yes.
monomusical.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And so for myself, I'm unfamiliar with the genre, so I can't share it with anybody. So the
Yeah.
whole thing of this show is to get people to go to a dinner party, instead of
Yeah.
the small talk about the weather,
Right.
tell me what's on your playlist,
I love
so I can
that.
expand,
I love
so I
that.
can expand so I can expand my playlist.
Right. 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 Oh, I love that.
So
That's great.
yeah.
Good.
So what kind of influence are you on your family with your playlist?
What kind of
I mean,
what
have you
influence?
yeah,
Is that what you said?
have you taken over? Yes, yes. Have you
Well,
taken over your brother? Are you more of a ska fan than he is now? And then
oh, definitely. Yeah.
your family, your husband, your kids. I
Yeah.
mean, are they introduced to it, and are they lovers
Yeah, oh,
of it also?
definitely. Yeah, I subject them to it. My boys are old enough now that they really do have their own musical tastes. I think, they listen to ska, they don't mind it, but it's not on their playlist. So I think, but they'll go to shows with me and things like that when, it's the non-pandemic times. So we'll go to a lot of festivals together as a family and see ska bands, but no, they really have their own musical tastes. And my husband is more into punk, so we do have some crossover there. When we go to shows, we have some crossover because frequently American ska will be on, at a festival, there might be some of that on a punk bill. But but yeah, I mean, I'm definitely more of a ska fan than my brother now. He likes it, but I don't know that he plays it. He definitely doesn't have a playlist. He's a vinyl person, but I don't think
Same here.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think you find any kind of deep music person really kind of is. You see I've got some behind me here on my shelves,
Yes.
but I don't know if ska geeks are few and far between, and we kind of know who we are because we all keep in touch. It's a very small, close knit society, and sub genre. We kind of stick together and go to the festivals and stuff together.
Well, yeah, you mentioned festivals, I have a question now. That is there a not Holy Grail? Is there
Oh, there is.
a Mecca? Is Mecca a place
Yeah.
that you go for the sky once a
Yeah.
year or twice a year?
There
Or
is.
where's
There is. Yeah. So it's called Supernova, and it is taking place this September. Of course, it's been rescheduled a bunch of times. It's taking place this September in Hampton, Virginia, and so I haven't even have the sign here, but this is from last year when it was rescheduled. But it's essentially about 3 days because it starts on a Friday and goes through the whole weekend, and there's just from noon until midnight, one band after another on two stages. And it's really like a family reunion because everybody has, with social media, we all know each other now. And
right?
and it's really a lot of fun. So I've gone for 2 years, and
Is that a permanent
usually
location, or
drive
is
out.
it does
It
it?
was in one location. The two people that put it on, they're a married couple that just love ska, and they and their kids put on this big ska festival. And so it was just where they were located. They were, I think it was in Fredericksburg, but now they've moved, and so the ska festival moves with them, and the fans move with them. So It's taking place at I think it's like a state park that's out there or something, but it's at the Hampton, Virginia, but it's the Supernova Ska Festival, and that'll be in September. So
Cool.
yeah, but other than
Thanks for
that,
sharing that.
yeah, absolutely, it's going to be a good time. And then outside of that, I think post pandemic there will be shows that pop up, bigger ones. Like I know Madness was supposed to tour from the UK. I think the Specials, they come around every now and then because they just did their 40th reunion. So we're getting into like the 40, the Selector. They just celebrated their 40th anniversary. So, but big festivals, usually it'll just be one or two ska bands at a bigger festival. So if you go to if you go to Riot Fest or Punk Rock Bowling, you're sure to get a ska band or two there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Professor, do you have anything up and coming?
Mm-hmm. I do. So I just got done. In fact, today, as soon as I'm done talking to you, I'm going to post my final grades for my students, and then I'm done for the semester. And once that's done, I'm spending my summer writing my next book, which will be my 8th book, and it is going to be just on. It's going to be called Women in Two-Tone and One Step Beyond. So it's about women in the UK who either played ska or were related to ska through members of the bands. So I spent about the past year and a half interviewing women and have accumulated probably about 30 interviews now. And I have to put that all together and start writing it in a cohesive way. So I've got my work cut out for me. Yeah, but that'll be fun.
Do you find that the project can be done by the end of the summer, or is that something that will take you to next year?
I think, once I start writing, I spend about 75% of my time researching and preparing and interviewing, and about 25% of my time then writing. So once I'm writing, I kind of have my method, and if I can stick my nose to the grindstone, I'll be, I'm hoping to be done by the end of summer. But it's going to be a lot of work. Yeah.
Well, I caught you right at the right moment.
Yeah, you did. You did. You definitely did, because I'm going to put my blinders on and try to I'm going to try to say no to a lot of things in order to get this done. Yep.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for your time. I mean,
thank
truly,
you.
truly appreciate it. You actually made my job difficult, because what I usually do, not usually, what I am going to do is that I take the interview and I just go through it second by second. And every time you name drop a band or a song, I have to create a playlist on YouTube. I don't want to tell you that, because I didn't want you to hold back. So I'm so glad you did, because this playlist is probably going to be like 100 songs.
Good. That's the whole point.
Right, yeah. I used to do YouTube, Spotify, and Pandora, but it became a chore. Yeah. So now I just do it on YouTube, and whoever puts the video out there gets credit for it and gets the pennies or whatever YouTube pays. Right. I don't make any monetary money off of it. It's just out there for people to enjoy.
Oh, that's great. So, well, you'll find it all there, because people, collectors have uploaded their vinyl, and everything's pretty much on YouTube. But if you have a difficult time finding it, or you say, what did she say? What was that name? Please do email me. I'll be happy to send those links to you. I won't say no to you. Great, so great. just ask me. Just ask me and I'll tell you.
I truly appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just hope that my work helps to introduce more people to ska music, and if they already know it, that they expand their knowledge of it, and that they deepen their appreciation for it. That's why I do what I do.
No, thank you. Thank you. You made this a truly fun interview. I swear I appreciate that.
Thank you. It was fun.
That was fun. I want to thank Professor Heather Augustyn for sharing the history of ska and her passion for the genre. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I am definitely going to up my game and add some ska to my playlist. Please be sure to check out Professor Augustyn's writings. We will have a link in our description below. Oh yeah, and her TED Talk. Be sure to check that out. As always, please share this episode and your favorite episode with someone who wants to expand their playlist. They can listen directly from our website, meetthemusic.buzzsprout.com, or wherever they get their podcasts. If this was your first episode, be sure to listen to our most downloaded episode on Zydeco with Michael Tesran, or check out our series on the blues. Thank you so much for joining us on our musical journey. Remember, if it's Monday, it's Meet the Music.